Greetings, 'tis I, Allan, and in the spirit of spooky season, we're going back to our roots. That's right, we're ripping off OSP again, folks. Even though the current geopolitical and economic state of the world is scary enough, I still think it's fun to sit back, relax, and consume some gothic horror. Specifically, The Black Cat, a short story written by
the creator of all that is dark, the godfather of death and despair, Edgar Allan Poe.
The text begins with the narrator telling the reader that even if this story he's about to write seems incredibly insane, he is actually perfectly mentally healthy. So, our completely sane protagonist is an unnamed man who grew up with a love of animals and has many pets as an adult, namely dogs, birds, fish, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. As per the title of the story will suggest, we will now be turning our attention to this cat, who is named Pluto and is very intelligent, quite large, and progressively has black fur. Now, why would owning a black cat be progressive? Well, that's because according to superstition, black cats are thought to be unlucky or witches in disguise. Our protagonist/narrator's wife strongly opposes these beliefs, because look at those eyes, could they really curse anyone? And the narrator agrees because Pluto is by far his favorite pet.
Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me whenever I went about the house. It was even with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the streets.
However, as he grows older, the man becomes more irritable, lashing out at the smallest things, leading up to an unfortunate night when he was walking home pissed off and absolutely hammered, ready to kill the next thing that interacts with him. And at the same time, Pluto walked up to his master expecting cuddles or a treat, but instead was grabbed by his once loving owner, causing him to bite back in self-defense, but that only seemed to anger the man further, who fiercely took out a knife and gouged out one of Pluto's eyes. Even though Pluto was still alive after the narrator sobered up and came to his senses, he was justifiably traumatized and never went near him ever again. Every time the man had to watch his pet flash around the corner and out of sight, he felt more and more guilt for what he had done. Because he is guilty. And what made things worse was that deep down in some dark, shameful part of his mind, he felt he liked doing it. That violence was some perverse part of his nature, craving for the next time he could take his anger out on something that could feel pain.
I had so much of my old heart left, as to be at first grieved by this evident dislike on the part of a creature which had once so loved me. Yet this feeling soon gave place to irritation, and then came, as if my final and irrevocable overthrow, the spirit of perverseness. Of this spirit philosophy takes no account, yet I am not sure that my soul lives. Then I am that perverseness is one of the most primitive impulses of the human heart, one of the indivisible primary faculties or sentiments which give direction to the character of man, who has not 100 times found himself committing a vile or silly action for no other reason than because he knows he should not. Have we not a perpetual inclination in the teeth of our best judgment to violate which is law merely because we understand it as such?
Eventually, out of mercy for either the cats or for himself, he decided to finish the job he had begun and hung Pluto, quick and painless, for one of them at least. That night, our protagonist woke up to his house in flames and barely made it out alive with his wife and servant. Though there was no mention of his other pets, he did state that his wealth was gone, so it's fair to assume that even if his dogs, fish, rabbits, birds, and monkeys did make it out alive, he would have no way of taking care of them. And let's be honest here, those fish are toast. The next day, when the fire was extinguished, the narrator went back to the ruins of his house, only to find it utterly unsalvageable, with all the walls having collapsed except for the one in his bedroom. Additionally, a crowd had gathered in his garden to spectate not the raised house, but the rotting figure of a gigantic cat with a rope around its neck that was likely cut down from a tree. Our protagonist also wonders for a second why some random white cat was just hanging in his garden when it suddenly reoccurred to him that he had killed Pluto just the night before, and that the falling plaster from the collapsing walls must have covered his fur, making it look white. Unsurprisingly, this revelation filled him with all the horrors you'd expect from two tragedies like this happening in the same day. Immediately, he suspected they were in some way connected. For months after the incident, the man found himself regretting the killing of his cat and mourning its loss so much he started looking for a new one identical to Pluto as a replacement, and also getting trashed about it. One night at the local tavern, he saw a large cat perched on a gin barrel, looking identical to Pluto in both shape and size, covered in black fur just like him, with the only difference being a white splotch of fur over its chest. When he reached out to pet the cat, it responded positively, and he immediately decided to adopt it, offering any amount to the tavern's landlord, only to find out that the landlord had no idea who this cat was and where it came from. Trusting the cat distribution system, the narrator brought it back home and was delighted to find that it immediately settled in with his wife as if it had been with them for years. Aww, that's so cute! Let's see how Poe takes us to the top of a cliff just to push us off. As time went on, the man was horrified to find himself growing to hate the cat for seemingly no reason at all. This was then intensified from when he found out that the new cat was also blind in one eye, something that filled him with dread while his wife grew endearing of it. Another thing uncannily Pluto about the new cat, who I'll be referring to Hades as from now on, since it doesn't seem to have a name, is that it wouldn't stop following him. When he walked, it trotted after him. When he sat, it took a place by his feet, and when he slept, the cat would paw at his chest in a way that would be heart-meltingly adorable if it didn't put him in a world of utterly paralyzing dread. Which was then reinforced by his wife pointing out that the white splotch of fur on Hades' neck had actually grown to take on the shape of an instrument that he refuses to name. This extreme buildup of stress, dread, and paranoia once again leads the narrator to the solution of killing the cat, for it was surely in some way cursed or vengeful spirit, and even if it didn't, well, he wasn't taking any chances, and he was already being haunted anyways.
I loathed and dreaded and would have rid myself of the monster I had dared, if it was now, I say, the image of a hideous, of a ghastly thing, of the gallows. Oh, mournful and terrible engine of horror and crime! Oh, agony of death!
One day, when he and his wife went down to the cellars of their new house, the cat followed right behind them, accidentally making him stumble. This enraged the narrator so much he immediately picked up a nearby axe and swung it at Hades, being stopped by his wife because, what the fuck? Only to have him respond by burying the axe in her skull instead, killing his wife. Once again, realizing what he had done just a bit too late, the man immediately concocts a plan to hide the body. Since he couldn't take her out of the house without risk of being spotted, he decides to instead hide her right here in the cellar, loosening the bricks out of the walls with a crowbar and stuffing her in there before putting it all back together with plaster identical to the old one. Concocted by himself, of course. Right after hiding the body of his murdered wife, our protagonist goes out searching for Hades, only to realize they seem to have run away in the ascending chaos of the murder. After a day or two of waiting, with no cat in sight, the man managed to breathe a sigh of relief, happy that the thing was gone, and only a bit miffed about the whole killing his own wife thing. Yeah, so, remind me about that one part of him being completely safe. Anyways, 3 days passed without the cat showing, and though he was questioned for the whereabouts of his wife by neighbors and police alike, there was no evidence against him, leaving him quite pleased. On the 4th day, however, a squad of police showed up with a warrant to search his house, yet the narrator was so confident in his body-hiding abilities, he simply stood there, watching smugly while the police started searching every nook and cranny of the house, and even making a show of taunting the police with how excellently built his cellar was, displaying the murder wall like an art piece.
Gentlemen, I delight to have allayed your suspicions. I wish you all health, and by a little more courtesy. By the by, gentlemen, this is a very well-constructed house. I may say excellently well-constructed house. These walls— are you going, gentlemen? These walls are solidly put together.
When he tapped the wall above her chest, a piercing, inhuman shriek rang through his ear, growing louder by the second, causing him to fall to the ground as the exiting officers rushed from the stairs to the wall, dismantling it to reveal his wife's rotting corpse falling over him. What's even more appalling is the fact that Hades, whom he thought was long gone, was perched on top of her, the white fur on his neck ever so apparent, looking down at him with one single, blazing eye. Poe, did you just write a more badass alcoholic version of the Telltale Heart?